The following is a Hoop Ball presentation. Welcome to the Fantasy NBA Today podcast.
Hello and welcome to Fantasy NBA Today. My name is Adrian Benjamins and I'm joined by Coach. And this episode is brought to you by Hawaiian Isles Kona Coffee Company. Get some delicious coffee. Head over to hawaiianisles.com and Amazon and taste the Kona difference. Coach, how are you doing tonight? I have a fresh brewed coffee, cup of Hawaiian Isles coffee right now, and I am enjoying it, man. It's great stuff.
Looks great. Yo, Adrian, how are you, my man? I'm doing great on this end here in Dallas. Just looking forward to the show tonight and talk some basketball with you. It's been a crazy finals here for sure.
Well, yeah, let's jump right into it. Finals, we saw a very interesting game last night, and Toronto getting the victory. Now, Coach, we still haven't seen KD. We're hearing he's out for Game 4, which is a major buzzkill if you're a Warriors fan. Clay was really close. It sounded like he really wanted to go. Warriors decided to kind of take the cautious approach and not play him. And so, you know, with no KD, no Clay, you could clearly see they were missing those guys out on the court. Toronto, they had a lead from early in the game, never lost it. I mean, there were times where the Warriors were making runs, getting close, but then, Toronto, they were shooting lights out from outside. Specifically, Danny Green and Kyle Lowry were just they were on fire from deep, man. So, Coach, what are your thoughts on the game? What do you think of Game 4? Clay will be back for Game 4, no KD. What are your thoughts on the series so far, Coach?
Well, from the beginning, I felt that KD not being part of the series just, changes everything. He's certainly one of the best, if not the best player in the game. So, you eliminate a player like that and, it's a different element. So, when I had heard that news, when I was happened to be in San Francisco a couple weeks ago here, it did not sound like KD was even close to coming back. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play at all in this series. They may just be sitting on this, and not even tell anybody. It's odd to me, though. I was wondering what your take was. Why doesn't he sit on the bench? What is the deal with KD that he has to be in the back? I've never seen, I don't think through the years, a player, a leader of a team type guy, not at least being on the bench rooting for his teammates. Isn't that odd to you?
Yeah, I didn't even really think about it, Coach, until you just brought it up. That is a really good question. And you're absolutely right. If a guy, even if he's just going to miss a game, usually he's dressed in a fly suit, sitting on that bench, supporting his teammates. Now, I do have to say, they do always show him in that area where they're going into the locker room, and he's always right there, high-fiving his teammates and encouraging them. So I'm sure he is still showing his support. Coach, the only thing I can think of, maybe he's in the back getting treatment, like with some of the trainers. Maybe he's even, I don't know. I mean, you'd have to think, he could sit on the bench for an hour or two and support your teammates. So, Coach, great point. I didn't even think about it, man.
It says a lot to me about KD. It agitates me. I've through the years been injured myself, had players injured, and man, you find a way to get yourself out on that bench to be yelling and cheering on your teammates, and it says a lot about sort of who he is, and I don't buy it for 1 second that he's getting treatments in the back or anything else. He's just an oddball with, and that's why I think he's very short-lived for Golden State, and he'll go somewhere else and try to be the main man. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it just was so odd to me that he never comes out there. But I think Clay was probably on the fence of playing, and they just made the determination that if he tweaked it during that game, he'd be out for the rest of the series, and that could just crush him. So having a couple of days extra rest, based on every report, is that he will play tomorrow night, which, is a big help. Kevin Looney's not going to play, though. He's under the concussion protocol, and no one's really, everybody mentions KD and Clay right away, but Looney's played a great role. If you look at his stats during the playoffs, he's had some double doubles. He's really plugged the gap in the paint. So he's another huge loss for them. So it's going to make this series close all the way. There's no question about it. I think without a doubt, this game tomorrow night, I'm sure Golden State will treat like a Game 7, because there's no possible way they can go down 3-1 and then have to go to Toronto. That's going to be really tough. So tomorrow's game should be super intense, should be a fantastic game.
Yeah, and Coach, I think they actually reported earlier today that it is possible that Looney returns at some point towards the end of the finals, which is surprising. Actually, Coach, he took a nasty fall, and I think the diagnosis is actually a fracture of his collarbone. He took a really nasty fall, and maybe you're right. Maybe he is also suffering from some kind of like a concussion as well. But I think the actual reason he's being listed out is due to a fracture in his collarbone. Took a really ugly fall, and he was really outstanding in some of the earlier series in the beginning of the playoffs. Not one of those main guys, but still a difference maker, especially on defense. So, I don't think he's going to sway them winning or not winning it, but it definitely still helps to have him on the court. So, fingers crossed that he can maybe find a way to get in these, if this series does go to a game 6 or 7, maybe it's possible we do see him, and also Kevin Durant. Coach, I lean kind of the way you're leaning. I'm really on the fence on if we even see KD in this series, but I do think we'll probably see him if it does go to like a game 7 or, like a game 7. I think it could be possible we see KD, maybe even a game 6. Coach, my feeling for this next game, I think the Warriors are going to find a way to win this next one with Clay returning. Man, Coach, he does so much on the defensive end, and he has really been on fire on the offensive end as well, man. His shot has been on for some time, so I think he's going to make a big difference. The Warriors crowd is going to be into it. They're going to be backing the team. I think Warriors are going to find a way to get this one series tied up. I think they're going to go back to Toronto with the home court advantage, so I still I do like Toronto's chances, especially if Durant is going to miss more time. But, Coach, again, I sound like a broken record. I'm just really happy that we're seeing a good series, a great finals. It's been really entertaining to watch. So I'm just really happy that we get to enjoy great basketball. Any closing thoughts here, Coach?
Yeah, absolutely, Adrian. I'll tell you that there's a lot of analysis that's the part that I'm enjoying the most about this finals is, we could talk probably 2 hours about all the different things going on. And that's what makes it to me so intriguing. I do a couple of points I want to bring up. The first one being, and I think we touched on it last week a little bit for our hoop ball listeners. I know there was one response that had agreed, I had some Twitter comments that they felt the same way, but it seems that the scheduling was just odd. It's everything has been enjoyable in the finals except the long stretches of time, how long it's taking to get the series in. So, that's something I'm hoping they address next year. Again, not to be repetitive from last week, but I think it's a good point that I know there's been some talk on some other podcasts that, stretch, give them a little extra time during the regular season and tighten up the playoff time, because it is hard to keep everybody's interest over such long periods of time. But, it's also been amazing to see the coaching. I mean, I'll tell you right now, Nick Nurse has won my respect as a coach. He is a really tactical, smart coach. I know they've just named him to be the Canadian national team coach, which will be really exciting because they have a boatload of good players. They are a team to be reckoned with in the future, come Olympics and everything, with all the young guys. I mean, everybody from Wiggins to RJ Barrett coming up, et cetera, et cetera. They've really got a nice group. But, when he went into that box and won the other game, I just thought that was like, man, I was loving that. It was incredible. And then some of his matchup changes, it's a very, great tactician game. And Kerr, I was mentioning it to my son last week, people need to start another maybe 2 or 3 years. You got to start having him in the conversation of one of the top 2 or 3 coaches of all times. And I say that, I know, longevity ends up being a big piece of that. But if you look at his winning percentage, there's nobody even close. He blows away Popovich and you name it. There's nobody even in his area code as far as winning percentage and what he's done in the championships. And I'm just talking about coaching-wise. He's got those as a player as well. So of course, I enjoy that element of it. And I think that's going to be a big difference coming down the stretch. I was very surprised Livingston got the start in this last game with Clay out, because Quinn Cook seemed like the more logical choice, at least to me, because of that offensive piece to give Curry a little bit of a break, because the rest of the guys out there, just there wasn't enough offense. And McKinney's not a bad young player, but he's a young player. He did a few good things, but that the rotations that they figure out, how they deal with these minutes, and is going to make a big difference. And then the last comment I want to say on Toronto, the only concern I'd have is if I was a Toronto fan is I think Danny Green is a streak shooter. He'll throw a game like that he did where he knocks down 5 out of 6 threes like once every 10 games. Well, I don't think that's going to happen again. So, that was something that was really in their favor. Certainly, Lowry being able to step up. Ibaka, I haven't seen Ibaka play like that in about 5 or 6 years. I did back when my worst fantasy pick ever, my second round first pick, which was the 13th overall pick in our draft. I took Ibaka. This is right after he was, led the league in blocks, and I'm embarrassed to say that. But so anyway, that's my comments on it. Really, it's just, I think it's going to be a tactical game. Obviously, the injuries are going to have a lot to do with it. But I would say right now, absolutely no idea what's going to happen. It's like half watching a reality series along with watching an NBA playoffs between all the different injury scenarios and altercations. It's amazing. But, that's what makes it fun, man.
Just going to say that's what makes it so fun. I remember those days, man, when Serge Ibaka used to get drafted, like right at the end of that first round, beginning of that second round. So, Coach, don't feel bad. I think we could do an entire show of some bad decisions. I remember I used to draft a guy named Josh Smith at like the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. I look back at that and I cringe that I ever did that, man. Man, but it is really interesting that the Raptors have a handful of guys, as you mentioned, Serge Ibaka, that can just come up big. These are guys who used to be primetime players that have kind of disappeared, but on any given moment, Ibaka, Gasol, Danny Green, as you mentioned, these guys can hit a big shot, get a good defensive play. Ibaka's defense, he was blocking some shots. I miss seeing those the Ibaka days, those rim protector days. So great to see that from him again. And
how about the playoffs that Van Vliet's been having?
You know what?
Good.
Van Vliet has been outstanding. Coach, where was this guy during the regular season? I mean, he looks like a legitimate starting point guard in this league. And where has this guy been, man? Outstanding.
Well, if you go back and watch the first round of the playoffs, even he was horrible. He just was just terrible. Now I know it's funny that everybody keeps equating it, but he had a day that they had a day off. You know, we had mentioned it last week, and they had a son, and he comes back after that, and it was like a different man came in the building, and all of a sudden he's, you know, there were times during that last game where he was in control of the court for Toronto. It was just like hard to believe that a guy could step it up to that level. And that ice cold three that he hit was just ridiculous.
Well, you know,
that's what makes me.
I might be reaching for straws here. I know you're a father. I'm a father. I have 2 kids. Kids bring out the best in you, man. They force you to be on your game. I'm not just talking about basketball. In life, they force you to get your act together. You want to be the best father, provider, person you can possibly be when you have kids, because it's not just for you anymore. It's for them. So, hey, maybe Van Vliet, maybe having a child was like the motivation that he needed to just be at his best. Van Vliet, if you're listening to this, and I'm sure you are, have more kids, man. Have plenty of kids. Keep going. No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, Coach, I'm having so much fun with these finals. I'm just happy that we're seeing great entertaining basketball. I love it. I cannot wait for Game 4 tomorrow. Coach, we have been talking, like, no joke, 16 minutes just about the finals. We could talk forever. Let's move on to one other thing that I want to talk about with you, Coach. We saw a trade go down today, and I'm just happy we're starting to see some movement in this free agent period. And Coach, the Nets trade Alan Crabbe and 2 first-round picks to the Hawks in exchange for Taurean Prince and a second-round pick. Now, this trade is mostly about the Nets shedding salary cap, right? So now they've got room for 2 max players. Coach, we're hearing a ton of buzz that there's mutual interest between Kyrie Irving and the Nets. Now they have room to get another second guy. Kyrie can bring a buddy to the party if he wants to go over to Brooklyn. What are your thoughts on this trade? On the Atlanta Hawks side, I think this trade is more about the draft picks. Coach, they now have 3 picks in the top 20. Let me see. Let me find this really quick.
Well, I've got it right here, man. The Hawks, and yes, the trade, this trade says a lot of things. It says, number one, that the Nets feel that they're going to get 2 max players, one specifically being Kyrie. I mean, that's really become apparent. And so, you know, the second piece for the Hawks is they're trying to maneuver to make a move, because in this draft coming up, with this trade completed, they have the 8th, 10th, 17th, 35th, 41st, and 44th. So they have 6 picks, 3 of them in the top 17. So there's already, what they were saying tonight is they're trying to package some of these picks to move up. They have their eye on a couple of guys they're really targeting, that they want to go after. So, we'll see what happens when you have those type of assets with 6 picks. It's interesting. Crabbe's contract is a terrible contract. I'm a little surprised that they're taking that on, but hopefully it works out for both of them. Atlanta, obviously, this was just a step in what they want to do next. But to have 6 picks in a draft is pretty amazing. There's a lot of teams that don't have any. As far as the Nets go, I think they're just going all in that this, they saw the improvement last year. They made the playoffs. They're looking like a legit franchise. And, I would not be surprised in a heartbeat if they didn't land like Kyrie and KD or something like that. That wouldn't be a surprise to me whatsoever. My question is, and I scoured the internet looking to, how is this going to affect D'Angelo Russell? Because, as a Mavericks guy myself, there's been a lot of scuttlebutt down here that the Mavs are trying to get D'Angelo. And maybe this trade indicates if they are thinking they're going to get Kyrie. I'm not sure if you keep Kyrie and D'Angelo in the backcourt together. Not sure if that's the right fit because they both need the ball in their hands. So we'll see. This could have a couple of other effects down the road. But it, like you said, it's going to be every night you're going to hear stuff. I wish we did a show every couple days now because 2 weeks from tonight is the NBA draft.
Oh, I can't wait for the draft, Coach.
Isn't that craziness? And then 2 weeks after that, we'll be at the Summer League in Vegas.
This league never stops.
It's all happening.
Never stops. I love it. I love the NBA so much, man. It just there's always something to talk about. There's never, as you say, there's never an off season. But very interesting trade here today, Coach. I'm just happy. It's like I feel like sometimes the first domino needs to fall, and then we start to see other movement. And I'm hoping this is that piece that starts like the catalyst of more movement throughout the league. I love it, man. I love it. So let's see what happens. I'm not going to speculate too much on the fantasy value yet of Alan Crabbe or Taurean Prince, only because there's still going to be so much more movement with these teams. Like, as of right now, I'm not too excited for either guy because the Hawks have a glut of players in the wing position. I think Kevin Huerter is their shooting guard of the future. They also have other guys there as well. So, unless I know that one of these guys has a starting role with good usage, I'm not going to do anything crazy. And I don't even really want to think too much about it until we get deeper into what happens more when we get closer to like Summer League and whatnot. Let's see what the rotation is going to look like then. So,
yeah, I agree. I don't even know where to put these two guys in my rankings as of yet. I've got just big question marks by both of them. I think this trade was simply twofold. One, the Hawks to get more assets to make this move to move up in the trade, and the Nets to free enough cap space to get to max players.
Exactly. I think that's what this trade's about. All right, Coach, let's move on to our team of the day. As you guys know, we've been doing a team on every show. We got the San Antonio Spurs, Coach. And so I want to talk about kind of just my feelings on the Spurs to start the season. Coach, I had low expectations when Kawhi got moved, when Dejounte Murray got hurt in the offseason, when I knew he was going to miss. I did expect LaMarcus Aldridge to have the outstanding season that he had. I thought it was going to take a lot of time for DeMar DeRozan to adjust to this team and to get used to his teammates. I felt that Rudy Gay and I think they had Pau Gasol on this team earlier in the season. I didn't know if they would be the same guys. I feel like they're kind of coming towards the, later tail end of their career. So, Coach, I had really low expectations for this team. I wasn't even sure they would make the playoffs, and they completely surprised me, proved me wrong. I saw some outstanding moments from guys like Derek White, Bryn Forbes, DeMar DeRozan, I think, played great. It did not take him any time at all to adjust to this offense or his teammates. LaMarcus Aldridge had an outstanding season. I mean, Coach, he's was on my do not draft list because I thought, I don't know, I just thought maybe, he's kind of coming he's kind of done a little bit, and he's not into this team like mentally. So I wasn't high on him. I was wrong. He was great. So, Coach, they had a good season. I was talking to my friend who's a crazy avid Laker fan. I was telling him because we haven't seen the Lakers make the playoffs in 6 years. Coach, the Spurs have been relevant since I can't even remember the last time they were bad or the last time they did not make the playoffs. I think it's just a testament of this franchise, Coach Popovich, their system, their coaching staff. They're such an outstanding franchise. So, Coach, want to get your thoughts on the San Antonio Spurs.
Well, I give all the credit to Popovich. I think he's a brilliant coaching mind, player developer. I could go on and on and on. I mean, he would be, in my Mount Rushmore of coaches with Wooden and some of the best of all times that have ever, sat on the sidelines. I mean, when you say staying relevant, for 16 straight years before the last 2 years, they had won at least 50. Do you realize how impossible that is? I mean, it's tough to string 2 seasons together where you win 50. And then it's not like the last 2 years they embarrassed themselves. They won 46 last year and 48. They were 48 and 34 this year with basically DeRozan, Aldridge, and somewhat of a G League team. And, it's just amazing what they've been able to do. I was excited when we had the Spurs tonight because, I always like to use that as a perfect example of when people think you can just assemble some talent and throw any coach out there or system or general manager to manage them and they're going to automatically be good. They are crazy. You have to have the right coach and team in place around him, not player-wise, but assistant coaches and the entire staff and a system in place. So, I'm just amazed at what he's been able to do. I was with you. I did not think they would make the playoffs this year. And after everything I just said about Pop, for me to say that was digging pretty deep. I just didn't see how they were going to do it. But, they finished with the 7th seed, but they were floating around 1 or 2 games. They were almost the 4th or 5th seed there for a while, just until the last week of the season. So outstanding. As far as going into next year, a couple of things I wanted to mention real quick before I throw it back over to you is they have the 15th highest payroll. So they're right in the middle of the gap, like normal. They generally stay in around that area. And they have 10 players locked up for next year and only 2 of them really with big dollars. They've and I'll go through it real quickly and get your comments on what you think about where they stand. Cause they only have one free agent that may leave, and that's Rudy Gay, but I don't be surprised if he doesn't take a pay cut and stay because I think he enjoys playing in that system. But they have DeRozan for 28 and Aldridge for 26, give or take a couple $100,000. And those are the 2 big dollar guys on the books. There have been a few rumors that I just read about this morning about them floating DeRozan out there in a trade, possibly. That's just something new. So I think something we keep an eye on. I think Aldridge is probably going to finish his career up there. It's just the perfect system for him. The other guys are all on the cheap, though. They've got their 3rd highest guy for next season's Patty Mills, believe it or not, at $13 million. And then I'll just buzz the rest of these real quick just to give you a feel and then get your input. But they have, and these guys are already on the books for next year. No player options, no nothing. They're set. Bertans $7 million, Bellinelli $6 million, Forbes $3 million, Jakob Poeltl $4 million, Lonnie Walker's on one of those rookie deals, the $2.67 million. Derek White's just $2 million, and DeJounte Murray $2.3 million, who missed the whole year. So they've got a ton of young, cheap talent there, which, again, gives them a lot of flexibility in the free agent market with some dollars as well. So what do you think about those guys?
I like their outlook going into next season, Coach, from a reality standpoint and also a fantasy standpoint. Let me tell you why. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think they've got the guns to hang in there with the top of the West. I'm talking about the Warriors, so I don't consider them contenders, but here's what I like, Coach. They got some young talent. I think they got their backcourt of the future. I love what I saw from Derek White this year. I think he could be a solid pro in this league. I was really high on DeJounte Murray before he got hurt. Coach, a great defender. I am really excited to see what him and Derek White can do together, how they look next to each other. Also with DeMar DeRozan, who looked outstanding. If LaMarcus Aldridge looks how he did last year, then just another piece to what's going to make them so good. And, Coach, I still believe that Jakob Poeltl can be a starting center in this league. I know he was disappointing last year. I had high hopes for him when he came over from Toronto, and he never really showed out, little glimpses. But I still believe that he could possibly be a quality starting center in this league. So, Coach, they got some nice pieces. Also, some young guys. I love they drafted a guy last year. We didn't get to see him a lot. His name's Lonnie Walker because he was injured. He was injured to start the season. So we didn't get to see him, but I like him. Coach, they're always so smart when they draft. They have the number 19 pick in this upcoming draft. So not high, but, Coach, they've turned they find the diamonds in the rough quite often. They're really intelligent when it comes to drafting. So, when they go up to the podium, when their picks be selected, my ears are going to be perked up a little bit to see who they're drafting because they're always so smart on who they pick. So, Coach, I love their outlook. Now, they still got work to do if they want, as I said, if they want to be a championship contender. It's clear they still need to bring in another star. And as you said, maybe DeMar DeRozan gets moved. But I still think they're a lock to make the playoffs next year. From a fantasy standpoint, they got a number of guys that I'm okay drafting. I mentioned Derek White, DeJounte Murray, DeMar DeRozan. I mean, Coach, there's some teams that I can't even come up with 2 or 3 guys to draft. I can come up with 4 or 5 here on this team. So I do like the Spurs. And as you said, what an outstanding franchise. Popovich, I hope he never retires. A lot of talk in the beginning of the season that who's his replacement going to be? He's got guys on his staff that he's worked with for a long time. Who's going to replace him? I'm happy that he's not planning on retiring next season or hopefully the season after, because if not the greatest coach of all time, for sure one of them. And the league is just better when this guy is coaching in the league. So I hope he stays as long as possible. Coach, any closing thoughts on the San Antonio Spurs?
Well, yeah, a couple of things. Hopefully we'll see Pop for at least another 2 or 3 years. I think the fact that he's coaching USA basketball, took over for Coach K, I think that's rejuvenated him a bit. But all the great things I said about the Spurs, I'll go out on a limb here. We're in June before the season begins, but I think for them to make the playoffs next year, and I said the same thing last year, so maybe I'll eat my words again, but I just don't think they have enough guns. I think that as great as Pop is and how well he uses his team, hopefully he can recruit somebody during USA basketball to come over, or if they, package DeRozan for some guys, I don't know. But I just know that, in my opinion, looking at their team and what they're going to roll out there with how competitive the West has become, I mean, there are a lot of teams that just missed the playoffs that are going to be pushing, the envelope, and a lot of teams that did are still going to be really strong. So, the Spurs outlook to me, for our hoop ballers out there that are Spurs fan, obviously, you believe in the system and you believe in Pop, but hopefully they can do something to land a big name. They need another max player in there with DeRozan and Aldridge, or Aldridge and whoever else they bring in. I think if they're going to be legit to make the playoffs and make any type of a run. But I just hope that they don't take a big step back, because I want to see Popovich in his last 2 or 3 years, which he can't have much more than that left. He's in his mid-70s or early mid-70s. So I think, another 3 years or so, I'd love to see him stay relevant enough to at least make the playoffs and make some type of mini run. So we'll see. This will be a fun off season for them. They make fantastic choices all the time. So there's no better time than now to go out and grab somebody good to make it one last run for Pop.
One last thought I got on the Spurs, Coach, is I think their development staff is one of the best in the NBA. And one example I have to give, Kawhi Leonard, in college was not a great outside shooter. In fact, one of the knocks on him coming into the draft was didn't have a great outside shot. And I truly believe that him he ended up in the Spurs through trade. The Pacers originally drafted him. The Spurs were able to trade for George Hill, and they got Kawhi Leonard. And I truly believe that the greatness that we're seeing from Kawhi Leonard, some of that has to do with him starting his career with the San Antonio Spurs. I don't know the guy's name, but they have a shooting coach who's one of the best in the NBA. And I think that did wonders. I mean, we're seeing it right now in the playoffs, what Kawhi can do, what an all-around monster Kawhi Leonard is. So I think the Spurs have a lot to do with that. So I think that's one of the reasons why, any guy they draft, I'm like, oh, hey, they landed on the Spurs, so they're going to get the best development, the best coaching. A lot of what rookies, a lot of their outlook depends on where they land. Is it a good fit? And the Spurs always feels like a good fit for any rookie. So I just, this is tough for me to say, Coach. I'm a Laker fan. I grew up, I was rooting for those Kobe Shaq teams when we were battling against the Spurs. So this isn't easy for me to say, but I'm a little older now. I got to give props where props are due. And the Spurs they're just such an outstanding organization. And it's just, I don't know what else to say, man. Like, you see crazy drama going on right now in Lakerland. You never hear of stuff like this happening in San Antonio. In fact, Coach, when Kawhi wanted out of San Antonio, I thought it was crazy because you never heard of that ever happening, right? So it was crazy stuff, man. So I just got to say, great team, great organization, great staff. It's good stuff, man. All right.
I'm with you, man. I just hope they make a few moves to stay relevant because they definitely need.
Yeah, I agree. And, they are always an active organization. I feel like they are always trying to make moves, trying to get better. So I have no doubt that they are going to pull some tricks out of their sleeve and make some moves that are going to make them a better team. Can't wait to see what goes down. All right, Coach, we did it again, man. We're going over 40 minutes. We, I think let's put a bow on this. Where can the listeners reach you at?
I'm on Twitter at Joe Sarvadi. That's JoeSarvadi. Certainly hit us up on our Hoopball website, hoop-ball.com, and join in on the forums and discussions we have there. We will continue to go through all the teams as, one by one. All are we're each divvying them up and working on them. So I encourage you to listen into those. And like I say, we'll be ramping up these next couple of shows as the finals wear down. And really start gearing up draft talk. So we'll have some of those breakdowns for you and start, especially for you guys that are jockeying for position in your keeper leagues for draft spots and where people are going to go and what impact they're going to have on the teams. And then, the free agency piece too. So stay on it, man. My soapbox thing every week that I finish up with is, this is when champions are built in the real NBA, and this is when they're built in fantasy and rotisserie. So you want to win your league, follow all this stuff, man. Stay up on it. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on Hoopball. And we'll try to get you there. So,
Coach, I cannot wait to talk draft with you. I cannot wait for the draft in 2 weeks' time. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite times of the year. All right, you guys. Hey, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Adrian Benjamins. I wanted to mention really quick, we got in Hoopball Dynasty League 2. If you guys like to play Dynasty, we got a couple teams that are going to become available. I'm going to post it in the forum. So if any of you listeners want to join Hoopball Dynasty League 2, it is a deep 24-team dynasty. It is very nerdy and very hardcore. So we got 2 really good teams available. I'll post the full team rosters. If any of you guys want a team, I'll post my email in there. You guys can hit me up directly, and we'll get you signed up in the league. Thank you guys so much for listening and supporting the show. Coach and I will be back next Friday. Have a good weekend, you guys.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.